Hey everyone, welcome back.
It's great to be here.
So today we're diving into something
Oh, yeah.
that I think a lot of people are really interested in, and that is cultivating calmness.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to be drawing from a really interesting audiobook that I just finished,
Cool.
all about mindfulness and finding that peaceful place,
Awesome.
inside, even when everything around you feels really kind of chaotic and crazy.
Right.
And we're going to be looking at some very practical things, I think, that you can do
Uh-huh.
to really kind of train your mind to be calmer.
Yeah, it's fascinating, It's not just about, avoiding stress,
Yeah.
but, actively choosing calmness as a way of being.
I love that.
Yeah.
It's a choice, right?
It is.
It makes me think about that example in the book about the Utu people of West Africa.
Right.
And they connect calmness to water.
Right. Right.
I thought that was so interesting.
That's a really helpful analogy, right?
It's like going with the flow,
Yeah.
Navigating effortlessly around obstacles instead of trying to force your way through.
Totally.
Yeah.
Okay, so that all sounds lovely,
Yeah.
but let's be real for a minute.
Okay.
Our minds are usually going a
Yeah.
mile minute.
Right.
It's like a bunch
Yeah.
of monkeys
Mm-hmm.
swinging from thought to thought to thought.
Yeah.
And the book refers to this as monkey mind.
Yes.
And I think we've all been there,
Well,
right?
sure.
Like you're trying to focus on one thing and then
Right.
suddenly you're planning your grocery list and
Yeah.
you're rehashing that awkward conversation from yesterday
Right.
and you're worrying about the deadline next week and it's all happening at the same time.
It never ends.
It never ends.
Yeah.
So is this just something we have to live with? Or can we actually train our brains to be calmer?
You absolutely can train your brain to be calmer.
And get this, practicing mindfulness can actually rewire the brain,
Really?
literally creating new pathways
Wow.
that reinforce calmness and self-regulation.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
I have to admit, I'm a little skeptical.
Okay.
Can you give me an example of how this rewiring
Yeah.
actually happens?
So think of it like this.
Okay.
Every time you practice mindfulness,
Yeah.
you're strengthening those neural connections
Okay.
associated with calmness,
Okay.
just like working out a muscle.
So it's like building a muscle.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
And neuroscientist Rick Hansen puts it this way.
Okay.
Our brains are like Velcro for negative experiences
Velcro for negative.
and Teflon for positive ones.
Cool. Yeah.
So we have to work a bit harder to make those positive experiences like calmness
Yeah.
really stick.
Okay, I get that.
Yeah.
So we're talking about rewiring our brains,
Mm-hmm.
making calmness a habit.
Yes.
But how do we actually do that?
Right.
How do we cultivate this calmness in the middle of everyday chaos?
Well, the audiobook has some really practical tools for that.
Okay.
And there's a story about a mom, Rashmi,
Okay.
who's dealing with her child having a meltdown in the car.
Oh, been there.
Yeah, like one of those moments where you just want to scream.
Oh, yeah.
But instead of reacting, in the heat of the moment,
Right.
she uses this 3-step technique.
Okay. I'm all ears.
Okay, so
What are the steps?
the first step is she names the chaos.
Oh, okay.
So it's about acknowledging what you're feeling without judgment.
Right.
Simply saying to yourself, like, okay, I'm feeling overwhelmed right now.
So just bringing awareness to it without
Yeah.
getting swept up in it.
Exactly. And then
Okay.
the second step is staying and studying.
Staying and studying.
Yes,
Okay.
which means shifting your focus inward
Okay,
to
yeah.
your breath, to your body sensations,
Okay.
and allowing those intense emotions to pass
Okay.
without getting totally carried away by them.
That sounds a lot easier said than done.
It does.
Yeah.
It does.
Yeah.
But the key is to remember that you have this inner observer,
Mm-hmm.
a part of you that can witness the chaos
Okay.
without becoming it.
So it's like having a calm,
Yes.
wise friend inside your head.
I love that analogy.
Yeah.
And finally, the third step is anchoring and harvesting.
Anchoring and harvesting.
Yes. This involves consciously recognizing the shift,
No.
noticing how you've calmed down,
Mm.
and really reinforcing that positive experience in your mind.
So you're not just letting it
Yeah.
step away. You're really kind of
Yeah, you're telling your brain,
Yeah.
hey, this calmness thing, I like it. Let's do more of this.
Yeah. Okay, I like it.
Yeah.
But what about those times when it feels like the stress is just too much? Like, what if I'm dealing with anxiety that feels really overwhelming?
Well, it's important to remember that if you're experiencing severe anxiety or panic attacks,
Yeah.
those are signs that you might need professional support. And there's no shame in seeking help.
Right.
These mindfulness techniques are powerful,
Yeah.
but they're not a replacement for therapy.
Right. Of course.
If you're dealing with, deeper issues.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
Okay. So We have these tools
Right.
for calming a chaotic moment.
Mm-hmm.
But how do we cultivate
Okay.
calmness in the bigger picture,
Yeah.
like in our overall
Yeah.
approach to life?
So the audiobook uses a really valid analogy here.
Okay.
The ancestral tracker.
Okay.
Imagine someone so attuned to their surroundings that they can read the story the ground is telling,
Okay.
picking up on the subtlest tracks and signs.
So I'm picturing like a nature expert
Yes.
who can spot the tiniest footprint and know what animal made it.
Precisely.
Okay.
And the idea is that we can learn to become those trackers of our own internal landscape.
Oh, interesting.
We can pay attention to our thoughts, feelings, and bodily sensations with that same level of detail, listening to the stories they're telling without judgment.
So instead of getting caught up in the drama,
Right.
we become curious observers.
Exactly.
That makes me think about the story in the audiobook about Jennifer,
Yes.
who witnessed a car accident.
Right. And it's a powerful example of how cultivating calmness allows you to respond with compassion,
Yeah.
even in those incredibly stressful situations.
Right.
Jennifer, seeing the driver in shock,
Right.
chooses to approach him with calmness and kindness,
Wow.
offering support rather than judgment.
That's powerful.
Yeah.
That's a powerful reminder that calmness isn't about being passive or ignoring what's happening.
Yeah.
It's about choosing how we respond.
Exactly.
So as we're tracking and witnessing our internal landscape, what are we looking for?
So the goal is to develop a more objective, non-judgmental awareness of your thoughts and feelings.
Okay.
Instead of getting caught up in the stories your mind creates, you simply observe them.
Okay.
But noticing the patterns, the triggers, the recurring theme.
Interesting.
It's like you're stepping back and saying, look at that thought.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah. And by doing that, we create space for calmness to emerge.
Exactly.
I'm curious, if you were to step into that tracker role right now and tune into your own internal landscape, what's something you're noticing?
You know what I'm noticing right now is a sense of excitement.
Yeah.
A real enthusiasm for this topic.
You just feel it?
It reminds me why I love exploring these ideas with you.
Yeah.
The joy of discovery, the potential for growth, and the possibility of helping others find greater peace and presence in their lives.
That's beautiful.
Thank you.
What I'm noticing in myself is a sense of gratitude for the opportunity to slow down and delve into these concepts with you.
Yeah.
It's so easy to get swept up in the busyness of life, and moments like this are a reminder to come back to that quiet center within.
Absolutely.
But I have to ask, what happens when we go beyond quiet?
All right.
When we explore stillness? Is it just an empty void?
Okay.
Or is there something more to it?
That's where things get really interesting.
Okay.
The audiobook actually makes a distinction between quiet and stillness.
Okay.
It's a subtle but important difference.
Okay.
And there's a story about a woman named Amy who goes on a retreat seeking peace and quiet.
Okay.
But her initial experience is anything but calm.
Oh, I know that feeling.
Yeah.
Sometimes when I try to meditate, it feels like all the mental noise just gets louder.
Exactly. And Amy's story illustrates a common pitfall. She discovers that forcing quiet actually amplifies her inner turmoil.
Right.
But then she has this amazing realization.
Okay.
True stillness isn't about silencing the mind completely. It's about finding that space within where you can observe the thoughts and emotions without getting carried away.
So stillness is like this deeper level of calmness,
Precisely.
a state of being that's both present and spacious.
Exactly.
Okay.
And what's fascinating is that when we cultivate stillness, it can become a wellspring of insight and creativity.
Oh.
It's like we're creating space for new ideas to emerge, for a deeper connection to ourselves and the world around us.
So how do we actually cultivate this stillness?
Right.
I mean, it sounds amazing.
Yeah.
But do we have to go on a silent retreat to experience it?
That's a great question. Not necessarily. It's funny you should mention creativity because the audiobook talks about how when we create space for stillness, it's like we're clearing the mental clutter.
Right.
Allowing those creative sparks to ignite.
It makes me think about when I'm out for a walk.
Yeah.
And a new idea for a project will just kind of pop into my head.
Exactly.
Do you think that's connected at all?
Absolutely.
Okay.
But you're right. We don't need to escape to a remote mountaintop
Yeah.
to experience stillness.
Right.
The audiobook offers some really practical ways to integrate it into everyday life.
That's what I'm curious about. How do we actually do that?
So cultivating calmness.
Yeah.
It's not a one-size-fits-all approach, right?
Right.
It's about finding what works for you.
Okay.
What resonates with your unique needs and lifestyle.
So it's like a personalized calmness toolkit.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Drawing from different practices and techniques.
I like it.
And a great place to start is with that guided exercise we mentioned earlier.
Okay.
Observing the space of silence.
Okay.
You know, the audiobook calls it creating a personal retreat.
Okay, a personal retreat. Does that mean I need to book a cabin in the woods?
Not at all.
Okay.
It can be as simple as carving out 30 to 45 minutes in your day for dedicated silence and stillness.
So no phones, no distractions.
Exactly.
Just me and my breath.
Precisely.
Okay.
And the audiobook kind of suggests a specific structure for this practice.
Right.
You begin by settling into your body, allowing your mind to calm.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe even using that labeling technique we talked about earlier.
Oh.
Gently acknowledging any thoughts or sensations without judgment.
It's like thinking or feeling restless.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Then you shift into a more formal sitting practice.
Okay.
Focusing on your breath, observing your inner landscape.
Mm-hmm.
And the key here is to embrace the silence, allowing it to expand within you.
But what if my mind starts racing?
Sure.
Or I get bored or restless?
Yeah.
Those are the times I usually just give up.
Right, and that's perfectly normal.
Okay.
It's a practice, not a performance.
Right.
And the audiobook encourages us to simply notice those distractions.
Okay.
You know, those obstacles, as it calls them.
Yeah.
And gently guide our attention back to the breath.
So it's like we're training a puppy.
I love that analogy.
We don't get frustrated when it wanders off.
Exactly.
We just patiently guide it back to where it needs to be.
And just like with puppy training, consistency is key.
Right.
The more we practice, the easier it becomes to access that state of calmness.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And a helpful tip that the audiobook offers is to journal and reflect after your practice.
So we're not just sitting in silence. We're actually kind of processing the experience.
You're processing it, integrating the insights into your life.
Right, right.
It's about making mindfulness an active force in our lives, not just something we do for a few minutes each day.
Okay.
And it even suggests extending this personal retreat concept.
Okay.
Gradually increasing the duration of our silent practice.
Like building up to a half day or even a full day of silence.
Yeah, it's definitely a challenge.
That's intense.
Not for everyone, but the audiobook highlights a common misconception that calmness equals sleepiness.
Oh, I've been there.
Right.
Sometimes when I try to meditate, I just end up dozing off.
And the audiobook encourages us to reframe that experience.
Okay.
Instead of seeing it as a failure, we can view it as our body's wisdom, communicating a need for rest.
Okay.
So if we're feeling tired during meditation, maybe we just need to listen to our bodies.
Yeah.
Give ourselves permission to rest.
That's a good point.
And it also highlights the importance of finding the right time of day for your practice.
Yeah.
Some people find that they're more alert and focused in the morning, while others prefer, evening meditation.
So it's about experimenting, finding what works for you.
What works for you.
Okay, but what about those times when we can't escape
Right.
to a quiet space
Sure.
for a formal meditation practice?
Okay.
How can we cultivate calmness in the midst of our busy lives?
That's where the concept of everyday mindfulness comes in.
Everyday mindfulness.
Yes, and the audiobook offers this brilliant tip.
Okay.
Identify a routine activity that you do every day.
Okay.
Something you do almost mindlessly.
Yeah.
And infuse it with mindful awareness.
Okay, so instead of just going through the motions,
Exactly.
we bring our full attention to it.
Yes. What kind of activities
are we talking about? It could be anything. Yeah. Brushing your teeth, washing the dishes, folding laundry.
Okay.
Even waiting in line at the grocery store.
Okay, so I'm picturing myself slowly and deliberately folding each sock.
Exactly.
And savoring the feeling of the fabric.
Yes.
Noticing the colors and the patterns.
And as you do this, you can also bring your attention to your breath.
Okay.
Noticing the gentle rise and fall of your chest or abdomen.
So we're turning these mundane tasks into mini mindfulness moments.
Exactly.
I love that.
And it's such a simple,
yet powerful way to cultivate presence and calmness in the midst of your daily routine.
Okay, what else does the audiobook suggest?
It also highlights the importance of being mindful in our interactions with technology.
Oh, especially in today's world.
Especially in today's digital world.
Where we're constantly bombarded with information and stimulation.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, it's so easy to get caught up in
the endless
scrolling The notifications.
The constant need to respond to every message.
Yeah. It's hard to resist.
It is.
Yeah.
And the audiobook suggests pausing before sending that angry text or email.
Oh, good advice.
Putting our phones down when we receive a triggering message.
Yeah.
Giving ourselves space to respond thoughtfully rather than reactively.
So we're retraining ourselves to be more intentional about how we use technology.
Precisely. Using it as a tool rather than letting it control us.
Right. And by cultivating calmness in these small, everyday moments, we're gradually shifting our overall state of being, creating a more peaceful and grounded foundation for our lives.
It's like we're weaving mindfulness into the very fabric of our existence.
I really like that image.
Yep.
Okay, so what about stress?
Okay.
I mean, we can't avoid it altogether, can we?
You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
The audiobook reminds us that stress is a normal part of life.
Right.
It's our body's natural response.
It's that fight or flight. Right?
Exactly. That's helped us survive for millennia.
Right.
But the problem is that in today's world, many of us are living in a near constant state of stress.
Yeah. I think that's true.
And that can take a toll on our physical and mental health.
So it's not about avoiding stress altogether.
Right.
It's about learning to manage it effectively.
Precisely.
Okay.
And mindfulness plays a crucial role in this process.
Yeah.
By cultivating calmness, we're strengthening our ability to regulate our stress response, to choose how we respond to challenges.
So instead of reacting impulsively, we're creating space to respond with more clarity and intention.
Precisely. And the audiobook highlights this fascinating point.
Okay.
Prolonged stress can actually distort our perception.
Really?
Making us more likely to focus on the negative
interesting.
And overlook the positive.
Okay.
But by cultivating calmness, we're essentially recalibrating our minds.
So we're kind of cleaning the lens of our perception.
Beautiful way to put it.
Allowing us to see the world more clearly.
Yes.
And appreciate the good things.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And as we cultivate calmness, we also begin to notice a shift in our energy levels.
Okay.
Instead of feeling drained and depleted by stress, we start to feel more energized and revitalized.
So calmness isn't just about relaxation. It's about tapping into a source of inner strength and vitality.
Exactly. Yeah. And that leads us to another important point. What about those times when stress feels overwhelming?
Right.
What if we're dealing with trauma or deep-rooted anxiety?
That's a really important question, and I'm glad you brought it up. I'm sure a lot of our listeners are dealing with those kinds of challenges.
And the audiobook acknowledges that mindfulness is a powerful tool, but it's not a cure-all.
Right.
It emphasizes that trauma and severe anxiety often require professional help. And there's no shame in seeking support from a therapist or counselor.
Mindfulness can be a wonderful complement
to
therapy, but it's not a substitute for professional help when needed.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's important to remember.
And the audiobook also highlights the importance of self-care.
Okay.
It reminds us that we need to be kind and compassionate with ourselves to create space for rest and rejuvenation.
Okay.
And to nourish our bodies with healthy food and movement.
So it's a holistic approach.
Precisely.
Yeah.
Recognizing that our physical, mental, and emotional well-being
it's all connected.
Are all interconnected.
Yeah.
And by weaving these practices into our lives, we're creating a foundation for sustainable calmness.
Sustainable calmness.
Yes, a state of being that's not dependent on external circumstances.
Okay.
But rather an inner resource that we can access anytime, anywhere.
It's like we're building an inner sanctuary.
I love that.
A place of peace and tranquility that we can always return to.
That's beautiful.
No matter what storms may be raging around us.
That's a beautiful way to put it.
Yeah.
I'm curious, as we're reflecting on these ideas, what's resonating most deeply for you? What's feeling particularly relevant in your own life right now?
What's really striking me is this reminder that calmness isn't something we achieve once and for all.
It's not a destination.
Yeah.
It's a continual practice.
It's a journey.
A journey of self-discovery and growth.
Really.
Wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. And I think that's what makes it so fascinating and ultimately so fulfilling. Yeah, really takes the pressure off.
It does.
You know, having to be perfectly calm all the time.
Right. It's not about perfection.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into cultivating calmness, the big question is,
Yeah.
How do we make this a lasting transformation?
That's the million-dollar question.
How do we move beyond
Right.
just doing mindfulness
Yeah.
to actually embodying it as a way of life?
It's about integrating these practices into our lives in a way that feels authentic and sustainable.
Okay.
And the audiobook suggests it's not about adding mindfulness to our to-do list, but weaving it into the very fabric of our lives.
It's not another task to check off.
Right.
It's about fundamentally shifting our perspective.
Exactly.
Okay.
Our way of being in the world.
And the audiobook highlights a key principle,
Okay.
making mindfulness a priority.
Making it a priority.
All right.
It's about recognizing that taking care of our mental and emotional well-being is just as important.
Just as important.
As taking care of our physical health.
So it's like scheduling that gym time.
Exactly.
But for our minds.
But for our minds.
Yeah, okay.
We're making a conscious commitment to nourish our inner landscape.
And it's not about being perfect, right?
It's not about perfection.
It's about showing up.
Showing up.
Kindness and compassion.
Even when we stumble or get distracted.
Absolutely. The key is to approach it with a spirit of gentle curiosity.
Gentle curiosity.
Noticing when your mind wanders without judgment and patiently guiding it back to the present moment.
It's like we're becoming our own inner mindfulness coaches.
I love that.
Yeah.
Offering ourselves encouragement and support along the way.
And as we continue to practice, we start to notice a shift in our relationship with our thoughts and emotions.
Absolutely.
What does that shift look like? Instead of feeling at the mercy of our thoughts, we develop a sense of spaciousness.
Spaciousness.
An ability to observe them without getting swept away.
So we're creating a buffer zone.
Yeah.
A space between us and our thoughts.
Exactly.
Where we can choose how to respond rather than reacting impulsively.
The audiobook uses this powerful analogy of the sky and the clouds.
Okay.
Our thoughts are like the clouds, constantly moving and changing.
Okay.
While our awareness is like the vast, open sky.
So even when the clouds are dark and stormy, the sky remains constant.
Yes.
Always there, holding space for it all.
That's a beautiful way to put it.
And as we cultivate this spacious awareness, we become less reactive.
Less reactive.
Less caught up in the drama of our thoughts and emotions.
And I imagine that translates into greater calmness in our daily lives.
I think so, yeah.
You're able to navigate challenges with more grace and ease, to respond to difficult situations with wisdom and compassion, rather than getting hijacked by stress or overwhelm.
So it's not that the challenges disappear, but our relationship to them changes.
Our relationship to them changes.
We're more equipped to handle them.
Exactly. And as we continue to practice, calmness becomes more than just a temporary state.
Okay.
It starts to permeate our very being.
Wow.
Influencing how we interact with the world, how we relate to others, and how we experience life itself.
It's like we're radiating a sense of peace and tranquility, not just for ourselves.
Not just for ourselves,
but for those around us as well.
And that highlights the ripple effect of cultivating calmness.
Oh, interesting.
As we become more peaceful within, we naturally contribute to creating a more peaceful world.
So it's not just about personal transformation. It's about creating a positive impact that extends outward.
And as we wrap up our deep dive, I want to leave you with one final thought-provoking question. What if calmness is not just a state of being, but a superpower?
Just superpower.
A superpower that allows us to navigate the complexities of life with grace and resilience. To connect with others with empathy and compassion. And to contribute to creating a more peaceful and harmonious world.
Wow, that's a powerful question.
It is, isn't it?
It really makes you think about calmness. In a whole new light.
In a whole new light.
And for all of you listening, I invite you to join me in exploring this question. What steps can you take today, no matter how small, to invite more calmness into your life? How can you make mindfulness a priority? Not just a fleeting thought.
A guiding principle.
But a guiding principle that shapes your thoughts, your actions, and ultimately your experience of the world.
Beautifully said.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into cultivating calmness.
It's been a pleasure.
May your journey towards greater peace and presence be filled with joy, discovery, and a deep sense of inner knowing,